Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This meeting is a follow-up from a meeting that a talk that I gave at a homeschool meeting a few months ago. So we didn't actually do a lot of homeschooling talking because there were some themes that I felt were very important for all of the people in this neighborhood to understand and think about. So recently, not an incident, just a question in tarbiyah came up. And that question, the answers given to that question, I thought would be a very good example to help explain something that we're trying to convey to you and people are not getting very well. Some people are starting to pick it up and others are not. And so I wanted to have this talk. I talked to Khair and said, that incident that happened, I thought it would be a good basis to illustrate this matter of the tarbiyah of the children that we're trying to convey. So there are some of this previous talk was actually recorded, but given that most people may not have had the opportunity to listen to it, and also, as they say in Arabic, fil iyada ifada, there's benefit in repeating things, that I will give a summary of what was the content of our last talk. So I actually have the same piece of paper which I gave to somebody, and I came back to my house and it crumpled up. This is the mother of this child. If you could just keep her with you, inshallah. So I quoted a hadith last time that we came together, and that was من لم يشكر القليل لم يشكر الكثير. Whoever is not grateful for a little is not grateful for a lot, for plenty. ومن لم يشكر الناس لم يشكر الله. And whoever is not grateful to people is not grateful to Allah. وتحدث بنعمة الله شكر. And to speak of the blessings of Allah Most High is gratitude, it's shukr. And وتركه كفر. And leaving the speaking of the blessings of Allah is ingratitude. It doesn't mean kufr in terms of belief. وَالْجَمَاعَ رَحْمَةٌ. The group is a mercy, and وَالْفُرْقَةُ عَذَابٌ. And being separated and divided is a torment. It's an adab. This hadith has a number of things in it that are related to our talk, but the reason that I brought it was that in order to convey the points that I needed to convey in the talk, I have to mention some of the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on myself and my husband and Khair and Shaykh Ashraf. And I definitely wanted to convey that was only from the aspect of mentioning the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon us. Not that we have any superiority over anyone, but the reason that in some areas, one of the things that were brought up in our last talk is that the advice that we're giving you in relation to the children is not often being taken seriously because we don't have children. So I had to mention to people that for a lot of the people coming from the West, you live in a society where you don't grow up with children. I lived like this because this is how I experienced my life while I was growing up in New Zealand. Is my brothers were close in age to me, a couple of years difference. Either way, I'm in the middle. And we grew up with children our own age or similar, close. And so we went through our whole life. We went to our primary or elementary school, we went to high school, and we went to, after our school, we were always with people who were close in our age. And we didn't actually grow up with babies and small children. However, I left New Zealand at a very young age. I was 19, and I've spent the last in over 26 years in living in 4 different countries. So I spent some time 5 different countries with my family in Kosovo, and I lived in Turkey for 1.5 years, and I lived in Egypt for 3 years, and I've lived in this country for the last 22 years. And from the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon us, that our experience of coming into the Muslim lands was one of being totally divorced from our Western culture and background. And my first Shaykh, who was very strict and disciplined, did not allow us even to visit. So there was a 10-year, 12-year period where we did not even go back and intermix with them. So the only Western person I had was association with in those years was Khair, because we met in Egypt and we lived together in one room in a dormitory. So al-Muhim, that our exposure, we were very disconnected from the ideas and cultural norms that we had grown up with, to the extent that, like something that your thoughts in your mind and the patterns that you have in your mind, they go round and round and round and round, and you base your life on the repetition of the models that you see. Those thought patterns and that criteria was eventually wiped out. And so we lived in a number of different countries, and we traveled to many countries. And as a woman, I have been in many people's homes and seen the inside of the homes and the way their children are and the way the people are behaved. And in the last 10 years, the specialty of our business has been the nas. Dealing with the nas, and children are little nasses. So the accumulation of that is that we have more life experience than you do, and in general, we have more Islamic knowledge than you do. So, and that is like astaghfirullah. It's not. It has nothing to do with saying ana. It's not. This is tahadduth bi ni'matillah. And I have no other way to explain this issue without doing that. So what we summed up in our last talk was that we have here in this community a extremely wonderful opportunity, and that is to raise a generation of Muslims who are constantly consolidated in their Islam. They have no other worldview. I mean, if they go out of the neighborhood, they see some things, but they're so overwhelmed with their Islamic worldview that even the things that they see, if they make a trip back to England or a trip back to Canada or they go outside of the hay, it's wiped out quickly because they're reconsolidated. They go to school and they hear about Allah and Rasulullah. They go to their friends, there's no TVs. And their friends, for the most part, are exposed to the same Islamic output as themselves. They come to the Zawiyah, they go to the mosque, they have parties, they do a lot of activities, and they're always reminded over and over and over and over and over again, every single day, that they are Muslim, and that they believe in Allah and Rasulullah, and that they should be living for Islam. However, the observation that we have made that we want to convey to you is that this opportunity is being wasted, and to a large degree. And a part of that reason is that a lot of people have come here from the West, and they're still very deeply tied into those cultural norms. And they're projecting them here and in the tarbiyah of the children without realizing it. And they're depending on literature that comes from people who do not think like we do. And they're taking advice and models and patterns to follow from those people. And there's no way that the way that a lot of tarbiyah books present, there is some practical information that is shared in all human experience across the board, but there are a lot of findings there that you are not seeing because you haven't had enough of a disconnection from those Western norms. So, as we pointed out in the last talk, the average Western family now has only 1 or 2 children. So, literature that comes out of a society that does not believe in Allah and the last day, where they do not have children anymore, is often focused around developing the nafs of that child and indulging the child. And that's what we see happening here, is that we have indulged children. And indulged people are not people who sacrifice. This is the problem. And we touched on this last time. This is the main point that we want to expand on here, is that this ummah is an ummah mubarakah, Ummat Muhammad. And this ummah will never be overcome. And this ummah will have continuity. And so there have been times when this ummah has ruled the world. And there have been times when this ummah has been punished by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and has been overcome by non-Muslims, and which is similar to the time in which we live. But there's always a continuity of salihin, ulama, mujahideen, dhakirin, arifin, who carry this deen forward to the next generation. All of you people here, for the most part, have taken my husband as your Shaykh. So I have been married to Shaykh for 22 years. So I can confirm for you that what you perceive as a Rajal Sadiq, a person who is a man who is true, that's how he is in his home also. There's no difference between the Shaykh you see on the outside and the Shaykh that you see on the inside. He's a Rajal Sadiq with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 24/7. So when we were married, I would like to share some of these things with you because I want you to be able to think about them. We came perhaps from a different generation than yourselves. We came from the West jaded and our hearts in pain because of our disconnection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed us by joining us with Ahlullah. So Khair and myself and Shaykh Ashraf, we had the tarbiyah of Sultan Baba, our Turkish Shaykh, for a period of myself for 9 years and for them for 8 years. When we took our tariq and we came to learn our deen, this matter was our whole life. We made it our whole life, and we continue to do that even to this day. So I observed Shaykh Nui has a lot more stamina than myself, and over the 22 years I watched someone, even from the very first that we were married, it's like we're not interested in an indulgent honeymoon. It's like we had a job to get done here. And so from the very first of our marriage, we were bang on with everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had blessed us to be able to do. And so I watched him over 6 years work every day, late into the night, and finish on the Sada. And then all the other works that he did besides that, and then continue with his work after Shaykh Abdul Rahman gave him the ijaza and spreading the tariq. So all of you have seen the fruit and the benefit of that effort of that individual person. So we know now at this point that thousands of people have benefited from Shaykh Noor's efforts. Thousands, literally. Not just in the tariqah, but outside of it also. If there are 5 people with this kind of himma and this kind of dedication, how many people will be affected? If there are 10 people like this, what will happen? If there are 50 people like this, you could actually, without any exaggeration, change the world. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this situation that we live in, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can change it in a moment. But it's the sunnatullah in the kawn, in the universe, that He changes things by the sidq and ikhlas of people. So when those people are there, the tawfiq comes down. So how is it that a few thousand, and there weren't a lot of people in the Arabian Peninsula at the time of the Prophet, a few thousands of people came out of the Arabian Peninsula, and the Rabi'a bin Amr, who confronted Rustam, the Persian general at Qadisiyah, his cloth was held on his head by a rope. They hardly had clothes to wear. And these people conquered the world. They literally conquered the world. Within 2 generations, Islam was the government from the borders of China to France. The Muslims, the Riviera actually used to be ruled by the Sharia. Riviera in France used to be Muslim. And right across to the Atlantic Ocean. And just 2 generations of people. So here we are, we have a very unique opportunity. But the problem is, these children, we have noticed, are being indulged. So an indulged child is not going to change the world. An indulged child is not going to change the world. So what do I mean by being indulged? So I'll give you this example that came up. It's a very simple, small thing, and we want to look at this example and look at the ramifications of it and develop it a little bit. So Hassan, who's running the school at Rayhan, came to Khair. Her son, Hassan, is 3 years old. So the matter came up, the discussion was, should a 3-year-old be asked, what do you want to eat? Okay, simple thing. Do you ask a 3-year-old, what would you like to eat? So Khair said, no, you don't ask him what he wants to eat. So then Hassan asked her, well, if there's soup and salad, and he says, I want salad, do you give him the salad? And she said, yes. So she told me this, and I said, yeah, that's absolutely right. You don't ask him what he wants. And if he asks for the salad because it's there, give him the salad. So this was conveyed to someone else in the neighborhood, I don't know who it is, and they said, no, we made a mistake, that's wrong, and you should ask the 3-year-old child, what would he like to eat? So let's look at the example of asking the 3-year-old child first, what would you like to eat? This is just a simple example, but this is an example of many other types of tarbiyah issues happening with the children. Okay, does a 3-year-old child know what is good for him? Can he distinguish between good and bad? The question might be said, a 3-year-old child, if you ask him, then you're helping him. This is what I assume. No one told me this, but I'm saying, okay, well, why would someone say that that is the right thing to do? So I would assume that it would be the right thing to do from the perspective that you're helping to develop the personality of that child to be independent. At a young age, you're teaching him to think for himself and to be able to differentiate between things and to choose. And you're showing the child respect as a small little person, that he has the right to choose. Okay. I will tell you the other side of asking a 3-year-old child, what would you like to eat? First of all, the child doesn't know what's good for him. So you teach him at a young age that you have what you want. That's the first thing that you teach him. You teach him that what you want is what you get. If you are thinking of life in a society where people live as individuals, that's not so bad. So you want something in life, you go out and get it. Make an effort for it. Where people live as individuals. But if you're looking at the way Muslims live in very large families, that's not the way Muslims, it's not a good quality. That what I want, I get. And what about everybody else? There are a number of other things related to what you're cultivating in that child. You teach the child by constantly giving it choices at a very young age when he's not able to distinguish, that to have dissatisfaction, that he has to have what he wants. And qana'a, contentment, there's a saying in Arabic that contentment is a treasure that never runs out. And something that all of us that should know that have been raised in the West, and this is I'm not exempt from it myself, but one of our most common problems in dealing with the problems of the nafs is contentment. How many people are so discontent? I didn't get the perfect wife. I haven't got the right house. I haven't got enough money. I'm not doing what I want to do with my time. I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not this, I'm not that. And constant discontentment because you've been raised all the time to have what you want. And if you don't have what you want, you don't have any self-satisfaction or contentment. Also, what you do by doing that is that you teach the child at a very young age that he doesn't have to follow orders or to follow authority. So when the mother comes into a child who's 3 years old who can't distinguish what is good for them and says, eat your food, the child learns, this is what's on the table, this is what you get to eat, alhamdulillah, we have something to eat. So he learns shukr, and he learns some contentment. But he also learns that there's someone who has authority over him, and he has to obey. And a lot of success in life is understanding that there is authority, and Islam is very much based on authority. We have initially the authority to the Khalifa, and the authority to the representative of the Khalifa. The Sahaba did not agree with a lot of the government that was occurring while they were still alive, some of them that lived to see the fitan. But the majority of them accepted it because of the chaos that ensued from lack of adherence to authority. So we have obedience to parents. We have a wife's obedience to her husband. So there are a lot of levels of submitting to authority in this deen. And children who don't learn that, they have problems in their life. They have problems in their life. So a child who, let's assume if we have a normal Muslim family where we have several children, and we have several children, and the mother asking several children, what do you want to eat, and what do you want to eat, and what do you want to eat, and what do you want to eat? As opposed to a family that sits down and has a mother and father, maybe a grandparent and several children, And this is our dinner for today. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So the children, they learn to have contentment. They learn to accept what is there. They should learn to appreciate that other people provided that for them, and it took work to bring it there. So they can't be fussy over what they get. And the larger implication is that those children that the self is constantly focused on, they don't have any sacrifice when they get older. They don't have any sacrifice when they get older. They don't have any endurance when they get older, and they don't have any perseverance when they get older. As the child becomes older and he asks you, can we have this to eat? If it's easy to do, of course, why not? When they can differentiate. So this is just a small point, but what you're doing, if you're taking a lot of this literature and these ideas that come from an alien society, an alien civilization, you will produce adult people. You're cultivating something in that child from a very young age. You're cultivating something. You're putting values in the child at a very young age, and they develop and stay there, those values. So what are the values that we want to have as Muslims? We don't want to be selfish, we want to be unselfish. We want to prefer others to ourselves. We want to be able to make a sacrifice for Allah wa Rasuluhu to the utmost of our ability. We want to live for Islam. So you need people who have very good akhlaq and a lot of stamina to be able to do that. Just yesterday I was talking to a couple of sisters about the general content of what we were going to do in this talk. And one of the concerns that a lot of the parents have, and these are often new parents who haven't grown up with children, is that they're very afraid of hurting their children. And they're very afraid of scarring their children. So the question came up, how do we not scar our children if we're disciplining them, if we're setting limits for them? My answer to her is it's in three things. That you give your children unconditional love. If they go over the limits that you have set for them, they should be disciplined in whatever way that you see as appropriate. That doesn't necessarily mean that you hit them. But when they do something wrong, you let them know that you still love them. That the love is unconditional, but they've done something that they should not repeat. And if they do it again, they're going to face the consequences. But you love them just the same. And the second thing is that you're always truthful with your children. Say what you mean and mean what you say. We're going to go, we're going. We're not going, we're not going. You're going to get this, you are going to get it. You're not going to get it, you're not going to get it. So when you communicate to your children, they always know that what you say is true. So they feel a great deal of security in their relationship with you. There's unconditional love, and they know exactly what the limits are, because you never lie to them, or you never exaggerate. You tell them the truth all the time. And the third thing is that you have no double standards. There's no double standards. You have an objective in your life, and you're going forward to it, and you want your children to do the same thing. And so the same thing that you require from them, you require from yourself. So if children see there's always truth, and there's no double standards, and there's unconditional love, they'll accept the discipline. They won't have a problem with it at all. On the contrary, if you do not discipline your children, you scar them. I'll give you one example. It's from the fitrah to love children. But if the child is badly behaved and spoiled, he is unpleasant and people don't like him. So if the child is pleasant, the salihin show affection and care for the child, and Ahlullah and the ulama, and so they make dua for the child and they follow up on the child and they try to benefit the child. So if you have a spoilt, badly behaved child, you're depriving him of a tremendous amount of khair and barakah in their lives, because people won't like to be around it. And with him, I do advise everyone to keep these matters in mind, and that you should look at the larger picture. For many of us, myself included, it's a long process unwinding the conditioning that you've had in a non-Islam, being immersed in totally in a non-Islamic society. The question came up about, well, how does one have Islamic tarbiyah? It comes from knowing Islam. So I'll give you a few ideas on this. Is that, for example, you go to somebody's house, okay, and the child wanders into the bedroom of the people or into other rooms of the people's house. So what do you teach your child? You teach your child that you don't do that, because we know in Islam, what's the principle is that everyone's house has a hurma. Everyone's home has a hurma, that you don't go into a place of an area of a person's home except the place that they take you to. If a child sees a bag and they want to look inside, what do you teach it? You say, no, you can't do that. Why? Because we know in Islam that people's private property has a hurma. So let's just go back to the principles of the deen. When a guest comes to your home, you teach your child that you put the guest in the nicer place to sit, because we know from our Prophet ﷺ that we have to honor our guests. When older people are gathered, you teach your child that they have to show respect to the older people. And this is one of the areas we discussed it more in the last talk, that is most apparent, the difference between the East and Western tarbiyah. So there was an example that we gave of one of the brothers who was talking to another man. I don't know who the man was, and if the person happens to be here, my apologies, and if inshallah no one knows who you are. One of the brothers was talking to a man at the masjid, and the man's child came, small child, and so the man turned away from the adult and put all his focus and attention on the child. And that's really bad manners. You're teaching your child that he's more important than the courtesy that should be shown to an older Muslim. So this is totally un-Islamic. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, he is not of us who doesn't show respect to the elder person and mercy to the younger person. So, and there are a number of examples of this, where the baby comes into the scene and the older person is shown disrespect. So this is why we sometimes call this the baby worship. The focus is the child, because it's an amazing new thing. It came out and it looks and it talks and it walks and it's an amazing thing. And so the focus is totally on the child. And love your children. There's no one who's telling you not to. But if you don't have your priorities right in raising them, Allah will turn this against you. Is Abu Abdurrahman here? No, he's not. There's the ayah, I was going to bring it, in kana aba'ukum wa abna'ukum wa ashiratukum. It's in Surah Tawbah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's a list of all the things that are beloved to people, of their fathers and their sons and their tribes and their brothers and their wives and their wealth and their houses that they enjoy living in, and their tijara that they're afraid that will go down. If any of these things are more beloved to us than Allah wa Rasuluhu, then wait until Allah brings His matter about. And Allah does not guide a fasiqeen people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to make Him our objective in life and not other than Him. And so the blessings that we have are part of the goodness that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, that He wants us to enjoy, but not to make a priority over Himself. So if you know your Islamic principles, when you're faced with a situation, what is the best thing to do with this child here in this situation? Then look at the Islamic principles, go back to them, and see, well, what is the Islamic principle in the matter? We'll close up with a couple of just small things. There's one ayah here that I thought should be the sum of everything that we want to do here, and that is قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ لَا شَرِيكَ لَهُ وَبِذَلِكَ أُمِرْتُ وَأَنَا أَوَّلُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. Say, verily my prayer, my worship, my life and my death are but for Allah, the Lord of all being, and there is no partner, He has no partner, and this is what I have been commanded to do, and I am the first of those who submit. So this is the whole point of your lives. This is the whole point of why we're here. This is the whole point why many of you made a sacrifice to come here. So you shouldn't lose that focus. And I would just like to share with you as the last thing in this talk, a sentiment that Shaykh and I feel at this point in our lives, that one thing I discussed last talk, which before I say this last thing, I will mention briefly because it's related, and that is that this is Zawiya, and it's the Zawiya of Shaykh, and he came to this country almost 30 years ago, and it's the result of his effort. It's the result of his effort. And all the people who come here and live here and associate with this Zawiya should respect that. They should respect that. And if you want to introduce things into your life that are contrary to the general flow and precepts of this Zawiya, you should understand that it's like someone who's in a boat and they want a bit more air, and so they want to open up a new window in the boat. And in principle, opening up a window is a good idea, but if you have too many people opening up windows in a boat, the boat might actually sink. So our way that we see our lives is that we are wanting to be raised up on the Day of Judgment and to be able to say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we did everything that we could. We did everything that we were capable of doing. And my own personal dua is that I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise me up with Sultan Baba, my first Shaykh, and Shaykh Abdul Rahman, and Shaykh Nuh, and Khair, and Shaykh Ashraf as one unit, as one person. Because our objectives, we've done our very, very best to carry forward all the work that we saw from Sultan Baba and Shaykh Abdul Rahman, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to this point has blessed us with a friendship for Allah for more than 20 years. And so the way that Shaykh and I personally see things at this point in our lives is that if we are granted a long life, we only probably have 25 years of production left in it, because Shaykh will be close to 80 by that time, and I will be over 70. So the way that we look at things at this point in our life, I'd like to share this with you so you know where we're at and what we want and what we expect and where we're going. So the way that we feel is like we're on the ship of Noah. So we'll make it Shaykh Noah instead of Sayyidina Noah. And we've got our compass set on one point, and we only have a little bit of time left, and we're giving everything that we have to reach that point. And that's all. And this ship, anyone who wants to be on it is welcome. You want to be on the top floor, you can be on the top floor. You want to be on the bottom floor, you can be on the bottom floor. You want to be on the middle, you can be in the middle. You can be anywhere you want. You're welcome. But you have to follow the ship's rules, because otherwise the ship will sink. So you want to get off the ship, you can do that too. It's not a problem. And we don't want to put, and that's part of the reason why this tarbiyah problem is happening here, is because we don't want to put pressure on you guys. We want you to have your freedom to be able to live your own lives without us interfering with you as much as possible. But our objective is we want to get to our destination with everything that we can to fulfill that, everything that we have. And we realize at this point that we don't have much time left. So we've only got a straight line now. So anyone who wants to be a part of that straight line, ahlan wa sahlan. Anyone who doesn't want to be a part of that straight line, that's right, you can get in a little boat and catch up with us sometimes. You can do it if you like. Ahlan wa sahlan. So anyway, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put some barakah in this talk. The matter is, you have to really think about where you're going with this tarbiyah and what you're producing, and look at it not only as the enjoyment of your own child, but look at what you are doing for this ummah and what you will say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and will you be a part of this ummah mubarakah that is the continuity of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. The Prophet ﷺ informed us that there will be a day when Islam will be in every single house and every single tent, and there will be no kufr in the world left. And that it doesn't come out of nothing. It will only it will happen because there's a continuity of Salihin and people who are going to sacrifice everything that they have. Walhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.